So resumes, they're the biggest necessary evil. And a little more on what Angie and I do is we're recruiters, and we work for a company called Robert Half. I recruit for finance and accounting, and Angie recruits for administrative jobs. So it is literally our job to look at resumes. On a given week, we'll look at, on the small end, 200. On a busy week, 400, 500. It's what we do. We see resumes all day. And having done this a while, we've picked up on tips and tricks that can really help set you apart from everybody else who has a resume in the pile. So today, we're gonna go over resume and cover letter and how they can help you get a job in just 2 minutes. Resumes don't take just 2 minutes, but these are some good pointers to help you sit down, and it should take about 20 to 30 minutes to write a good resume, and we'll get into that. So a little bit of what we're gonna go over today, the basics, what you need. The biggest help I could say to write a resume is format it. And I mean, put it in an order that's consistent and helps you stand out from someone else. The worst thing is when we see a resume and there's information all over the place. It's 6 pages long when it could really be 1 page. Really taking some time and hashing out the details can really help you. And some tricks we've learned to help avoid. So, writing a resume. There's 3 basic ways you can do it. You can go by the age-old time, what you've done most recently. Number 1 tip for a resume, you always put your most recent job at the top. Doesn't really matter what it is, we'll get into that though, but it helps for an employer to take a look and be like, oh, what have they been doing for the past 2 years? They've been at company A, B, and C, and then before that, and before that. And then there's the functional role. And the reason these 2 are good is because it gives an employer a snapshot of who you are. Say if you're going for a job as, off the top of my head, an office manager, and you have 10 years of office management experience, but in the past 5 years, you've only done it for a year. So what have you been doing? Where are those other 9 years? You have to make sure that's seen on your resume. And what that can really do is no matter what job you're going for, it lets the employer know in a snapshot of what you've been doing. So off the top of your heads, how long do you think an employer looks at a resume if they have it in their hand or online? Anyone can go.
6 seconds.
Right around there, between 6 and 15 seconds. I can normally tell pretty quickly, I think Angie can vouch for this, if we have a job for someone, if we're going to use them or not, by looking at their resume. And there's certain eye-catching characteristics that can really help you.
Sometimes I'll often interview a candidate that has a lot of experience in many different fields, so they actually take it upon themselves to, really zero in on what they're applying for and take the most, I want to say, qualified attributes that they have and make a resume for what they're applying for. So it really, it's outstanding to, what they can really bring to the table, and hence the reason why, their resume gets unpacked a little bit more when they have competition to go up against. So a lot of people that come in will have numerous resumes, and it's not because they're being, tricky or they want to trick people. It's just because they have a skill set and it's so hard to say it in 1 page. So that's some food for thought as well.
No, absolutely. You just hit on a great point. You have to have more than 1 resume. If you're going for a job of saying being a machine operator, show me what you've done that says you can operate a machine. I mean, don't hand me a resume that says, you've been working customer service for the past 6 years if you really want to sit down and help operate a machine. So you need to have multiple resumes to what you're going for. Like I said, chronologically, set it in order. Easiest is to go most recent and past. And the biggest question I get, I actually got it when I sat down with Jen a while ago, is how far back do you go? There's no standard, but what we normally see is 10 years. But you can go farther back than that. I don't want you to think, oh, just 10 years, that's it. What were you doing before then? Well, that all ties back into it has to be relevant to the job you're applying to. If you're really going for a job of saying that machine operator and you did it from 91 to 94, you have to put that on there. Even though it's chronologically and it might be broken up from 91 to 94 to 2002 to 2007. If you're going for that job, an employer needs to see you've done that. So chronologically, yes, you can go back farther than 10, even 20 years. It just all depends on what experience you're helping show them. A little more on the functional. I'll let Angie get into it, but she touched on it a little bit if you're going for a certain job.
So it says organize around skills, experiences, and accomplishments, omits or only broadly mentions work history. And that's really important because, you can say this was my job title and these were my duties, but what did you really bring to the table? So my duty was to, really closely manage budgeting. Okay, but how much money did you save the company by doing this? Because that's really important. That's a goal. That's something that you set for yourself that you achieved. And that's different, and that's what's going to take you away from the next person who's unemployed as well or looking for work as well that also has the same skill set as you. So I definitely think that that is oftentimes confused and that it's really important that you make sure that you're outlining what you've actually brought to the table rather than just hammering out, job, what you generally do in a day. Yes, so that's basically all that this slide really covers. Aside from that, if you have a customer service role that is, greeting the guests, providing friendly service. You want to put some fluff words in as well, but make sure that you're not overdoing it. So, on the entry level, provided friendly service, friendly and diplomatic service to my table. Say you're a server. Constantly upselling. You want to say things like that. Generally, if you're a server or a bartender, they look for those types of attributes if you're going for entry-level customer service. So it's just very, very important that you're marking those attributes that you gained, that you did on a daily basis to make the people on the other end feel special and welcome back. You want to go to the next?
I just want to add one more thing to that.
Sure.
Angie touched on it briefly, but the biggest, I wouldn't say problem, because it's not a problem with the functional role resume, is people will look at it and see gaps of employment. You have to be ready to explain that. We'll get into that in a second. But if you are entry level, you obviously not going to have a lot of work experience. I myself have had 13 or 14 jobs, but I'm not going to put them all on a resume. I'm going to make them relevant to what I'm going for. And this is big. We see a lot of mothers coming back from work. I took some time off to raise the kids, and sometimes a functional role resume might help them a little bit more.
Okay, so combines features of chronological and functional resumes, showcases skills and accomplishments, and briefly outlines work history. And it says use if hiring managers haven't responded to your chronological resume, or weak link between your experience and the opening. When I got hired at Robert Half, I was a bartender. I was a recent college grad. I didn't have a lot going for me at that instant. It was a great job. I made excellent money, but I kind of looked at myself one day and looked at my dog and said, boy, someday we're going to want more. So I took the chance. I made the resume. I said, this is how I think my job is applicable to this job. I have a great education. Please give me the opportunity to sit in front of you and woo you in a personal interview. So nevertheless, that's kind of what I did. I focused, my resume on what I had done in the sales aspect and, the interpersonal skills that I had gained from being a bartender. It's funny, when I sat down with the vice president, I asked him, so what is it that you liked about my resume? And it was kind of hilarious because he'd pick it up and he was like, he couldn't answer me because I had no relative experience, really. But I did the best that I possibly could with saying, I think I would succeed in this job because this is similar this way and this is similar this way, in a sense where it was obviously chronologically ordered and bulleted. And and I think that that's definitely important because at the end of the day, it got me a job in a Fortune 500 company, just making sure that I knew the job role and that I could take my current experience and say, I think it's similar to this in so many words, clearly and concisely, of course. Does anybody have any questions about that? No?
All right, yeah. So the combo resume brings the best of both worlds. If you're doing this from years 2009 to 2012, and then before that you're doing something else, you can combine them all in one resume. So that's when you use that. All right, the first thing someone sees when they look at your resume, your heading. It's who you are. It's obviously your name. And for some people, they do forget this part. So if I'm an employer and I look like your resume, we're going to need your cell phone number on there or your home number, the best way to reach you. Underneath that, this right here is the standard on how to write a heading. Name, address, phone number, email. And there's a couple different ways you can do it. You can format them all underneath your name in 2 lines, and this is a 5-line heading, but this is good. This is how you should write the top of your resume. The summary or the objective. The thing I like about the summary or objective is it gives a snapshot of who you are in 1 or 2 sentences. It doesn't need to be a paragraph. For the most part, your resume should be only 1, maybe 2 pages long. But for the most part, the general rule of thumb is we try to go for a 1-page resume. So you don't have to be overly wordy with it. You just say, I'll do one for myself right now. I'm experienced sales, off the top of my head, experienced sales professional who brings to the table 3 years in customer service experience. Self-driven, motivated individual looking to establish myself in a company. And that just says, I'm looking to get my foot in the door. These are my past skills, and how can you use me in this role? And again, your objective will change for each different resume you have, because I'm not going to use that sales pitch if I'm applying to, a management or marketing role or something completely different.
Do you call it a summary or an objective, or does it matter? And do you do it at the beginning or the end?
I always call it an objective because it's what you're trying to do. Your objective is to get a job. And normally, again, no resume is the same. Normally, you go heading, objective, and then you can either do, we'll get into it, but work history, education, we'll get into that. But objective should be right at the top.
And do you like to see objective? Because I
like to see, yep, it's funny you say that. I like to see a very short objective. I like to see literally a 1-sentence objective. This is who I am. This is what I'm trying to do. Okay, because I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to read your objective. It's a paragraph. Because we do get resumes like that where people literally have, 6, 7 sentences, and time is money. So
we'll get something like objective, and it will end up being like a hybrid of, an objective meets a summary, meets a personal profile, meets a bunch of fluff words saying friendly and outgoing and whatever else. Yeah, we can determine that when we pull you in for an interview of whether or not you're friendly and outgoing. I mean, anybody can put words on a page. It all determines when you sit in the seat. So it's very important to just be very concise and very, very limit those fluff words. And fluff words, I mean those descriptive adjectives. A go-getter, whatever have you. That stuff doesn't need to be on your resume. My objective when I wrote my resume was recent college grad looking to sustain a sales position in a reputable or in a, I believe it said, in a company that offers me growth.
Perfect.
And
Just right there, stop. They would go right on and read it down. Objectives, rule of thumb. Rule of thumb, 1 sentence. If you have to go 2, go 2. But you're right. People are shying away from objectives because they have gotten too wordy. So that's all you can really say about that. It's the snippet of who you are right up top before we get into your work history.
Experience. So, for example, they have executive assistant, XYZ Corporation, Southfield, Minnesota, January 2000 to present. That's perfectly done. Oftentimes, in order to consolidate space, sometimes you'll see the executive assistant on the left, and then on the right, you'll see the executive assistant, then it will be a comma, It will tell you where, and then if it's tabbed over on the same line, you can really consolidate space. It will tell you the date in which you worked. So instead of using 3 lines, you only end up using 1. And that's really important when you're trying to squeeze a bunch of information on one page. You want to try and be as concise as possible. And then this is also really important to give them a little snippet of what you have been doing. Okay, so managed operations budget, coordinated meetings, events, and travel for a team of 25. Accomplishments include. So they're not just listing off, bulleting and listing off, cashing people out, not providing friendly service, responsible for cash drawer, or something like that. They're saying, okay, this is basically what I did, 1, 2, 3, and then this is what I did for the company, and this is why I would be an excellent hire because I've done this before, and I'm hoping to do it for you. So reduced department costs by 15% within first year. Organized and taught series of courses to administrative staff focusing on negotiation and time management. Great. So now we know what you've done before, what your responsibilities were, and what you actually brought to the table by generating these responsibilities on a daily basis.
No, that was pretty good. I mean, that's basically what it was. And again, these are for administrative and accounting jobs. Every job's going to be different, but you have to find things that you've done in your role, no matter what it was. If you were, off the top of my head, someone throw out a job real quick. If you're a truck driver, maintain my route in a timely manner. You have to put things in that. You have to toot your own horn, and that's the hard part for a lot of people writing the resume. You have to talk about yourself in a flattering light because, truck driver, great. Well, what did you do when you were doing a truck driver? You didn't just drive from A to B. You were responsible for the freight. You were responsible for being on time. You were responsible for upholding the codes and laws. There's a lot of things that can go into a job that people might not see just by your title.
Right, and being that truck driver and being timely, what did you save the company? Can you ask the company that? If you're saving the company time, then you're saving the company money. So at the end of the day, we always say, what kills all deals? Time kills all deals. What are we wasting when we're wasting time? We're wasting money. So in that sense, it's really important if you can say, I generated, this much in revenue for the company, as well as, saved them on this much time. And, I seeked an ulterior route in order to, have fuel cost savings, whatever else, whatever you feel as though was applicable to the job that did for the company.
Absolutely. So education. This is a piece that I've seen people stumble on a little bit. It's a very quick piece, and people look at it very quickly on the resume because, in all honesty, I've been doing this job for 8-9 months now, and only 3 or 4 times have I ever seen education stop someone from getting a job. Everyone's under this notion that I need this college degree, they won't take me, they won't look at me. That's not true. And I'll tell you why. Put your education on. You always put your highest level on. If it's a high school degree, you put the high school degree on. Now, one thing I want to touch on is you don't have to put the date you graduated on. You really don't. You can just put Exeter High graduated, or graduation Exeter High, and we'll get into more of degrees and certificates later. But just put your highest level of education on, and you don't have to put the date. You can, but you don't have to. It's up to you and your focus on what you want to do with that. So that's a little more about education, and obviously if you want to go college, high school, and that's pretty much it.
Is your age important?
No.
Absolutely not. Do not list your age in any circumstance ever.
It's illegal for someone, it's literally illegal for someone not to hire based on age. So
Therefore, you shouldn't disclose it.
age is the least important thing we look at.
The other thing is oftentimes we'll see a recent college grad, the shining star, will list their education, very nice, and then they'll list that they had a 3.0 GPA. Okay, well, that's nice that you had a 3.0. That's a great grade. That's also not necessary. If you have an education, if you have a title, you've proven the fact that you have gone through a structured school setting and that you have proven that you can learn. So, and nevertheless, that's oftentimes what people are looking for when they take education into key factors of whether or not they're going to hire you. They'll say, okay, it doesn't matter what you went to what you got educated on, but can you learn? You know, were you in a structured environment where you succeeded and were able to gain this degree? I mean, I went to school for English journalism, business administration. I'm here in sales. So it doesn't really matter what you have it in. Sometimes it just matters that you have it. But oftentimes it doesn't matter at all if you have the experience.
If you have a degree, but you've taken other coursework in, say, your degree is in communications, but you've taken a couple business classes, then do you list, I have an associate's in communication, but I've also taken classes in blah, blah, blah?
Again, it depends what job you're applying to. Absolutely, if you're applying to a job that encompasses any business, they'll say, oh, so you have taken some classes, entry level or not, you have taken those. So again, it all comes back to writing the resume for the job you want. Does that help answer that? So, miscellaneous. We always say we put this at the bottom. This is your list of achievements or accomplishments. Should be a very short section in your resume. It's literally the last thing we probably look at. We look for name, work history, and then at the education sometimes, and then at the bottom. Sure, you know, if you are fluent in another language, throw that on. I've seen that get people jobs. This one is actually big. I would not put this as miscellaneous. If you have any technical skills whatsoever, that means computer, you're proficient in operating some sort of machine. If you have any proficiencies in something that sets you apart, put that on there. Something technical. That is huge. I've literally seen people get jobs by being proficient in some obscure software no one else has heard of. And they got the job just because they put that on their resume, and most people wouldn't. So this is not miscellaneous. This would go under your technical skills, and your technical skills would range from, you know, what job you were applying to. You know, if you remember of the Portsmouth Chamber of Commerce, throw that on there. You never know who might be on there too. You know, just little things like this that can help set you apart and give you a snapshot of who you are. So, writing your resume. Angie, you're an English major.
Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, when you're writing a resume, the only real sentence you should have on there is your objective. Aside from that, bullet points and avoiding those I's, any of those words that you can get off of there and still get your point across. I mean, you don't have to speak like a robot, but avoiding the I, you know, I did, I, whatever, you know, worked as a team as well is just as important as I. But it's also really important to avoid those words because you want to keep the sentences concise. So keeping the sentences short. Generally, what I like to see is your job title. Right on the other side, your job title where it was. On the other side, you know, the longevity of it. Right underneath, a little snippet of what your duties were. And then right underneath that, what you actually did for the company, what you actually brought to the table. And it's very important to be as simple as possible. I mean, hiring managers, fine. They shouldn't have to pull up Google to understand what you've done. If you can say it in plain English, great. I mean, I'm sure that they're very certified, they're very smart, but at times, just plain English would do just fine. Bullets, I love bullets. I get so upset when I don't see bullets on resumes, and that's because they just let you know this is the beginning, and the end is where the last word is. And then the next bullet, this is the beginning, we're starting a new topic, and the end is where the last word is. So oftentimes I like to see those 3 bullets right underneath that 3 snippets of generally what your work consisted of.
The bullets are a snapshot of who you are. The bullets are a snapshot. They give you a quick pitch on, I did this, this, and this. You definitely don't want sentences in your job description, you know. Going back to the truck driver, if I was a truck driver, you know, timely delivery of goods, whatever you were transporting, you know, something simple and basic, and they go, oh yeah, that's relevant to this job. So some keywords Again, this is, I don't want to go too into depth into this, but this all depends on the job you're going for. Everyone picture a job in their head right now and pick a word that associates with that job. I'll say, if I was a teacher, I would say, in my snapshots and my keywords, I would be educated, public, and this. We have to go with words that would attract the attention of a hiring manager in that specific industry. It's great if you were a teacher going for a business role, but what's your relevant experience? What's some keywords that can really define your difference? Oh, I was a business teacher. Oh, well, that makes you a little apt to know this role a little bit more. Keywords, just write them to the industry you're going for. Not much else you can really say about that. So some common questions we get all the time, and hence why it's on there. We do work for a temporary placement firm, so people always ask, should I put temporary work on there? Because some of our temporary jobs can last, 1 or 2 days, and you don't want to clutter your resume with, literally 6 or 7 jobs. That's up to the discretion of you and the job you're going for. If you were a temporary accountant for 2 weeks and you were applying to a CPA firm, I might put that on there. But temporary work is one of those things that, if you can avoid it, you don't have to put it on there. But at the same time, if it is relevant to the job you're looking for, please put it on.
How do you list that? And this is something that I struggle with a lot of people. They will put, do they put account temps and then the company where you actually place them?
You can. I'll let Angie touch on this a little bit more. I just lost my train of thought. You can do that. Angie, you're going to go. I forgot.
Generally, what I tell people when they ask, can I put temporary work on here that I've done through you guys? Oftentimes I say yes. If you want to put office team and what the job title was and for the duration, then fine. And then you can go into the 3 aspects of what you generally performed for this job, and then go into the bullet points of what you brought to the table. Oftentimes I normally tell them that they should leave the company name off, and then just say, because technically they are an employer of us, we pay them. We're their management team. They respond to us when they're not, when either they're unable to come in. If they're, giving a 2 weeks notice, they respond directly to us because they're on our payroll. When they're not going to work, we're the ones paying their unemployment. So, in that instance, yes, you can, and yes, I would, but generally I would just list the duration of it as well as the company that is paying them, rather than the company that they're actually going out to work for, because technically they are an employer of us. So just to make sure, and for clarity purposes, that they're being thorough with what they're telling somebody and that they're not fibbing. So, yes, so absolutely list temporary work. Oftentimes, if somebody does, a smorgasbord to say, I've been working for office team for this many years on numerous assignments from this time to this time. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty of it, maybe just administrative work, clerical work, and customer service positions. And then please, feel free to explain yourself further when you get into when you get into an interview. But as for that, I would definitely try and keep it as concise as possible because you want those permanent jobs on there as well. Applying for multiple jobs within the same company, like I said before, if you have a skill set that is very, what's the word I'm looking for? That's very standard. Just one skill set that you feel as though you could bring something to the table for a specific job, then great. If you have something else more in your history, put that a little bit more further up on your resume. Make a resume for that specific job that you're applying for. Say, I did this for this long. This is what I'd like to get back into, and this is what I brought to the table. And that's what I would do. It's not like you're taking your resume and putting lies on there. You're just outlining what is most important when you are going to apply for a job that obviously you want over your competition. The appropriate length for a resume, Aaron hit the nail on the head when he said a page. If you go over a page, it's not a super huge deal. Don't leave something off that's really important because you're going to go over a little bit. Oftentimes, people are sending out resumes online now, so it doesn't really matter how many pages are. They're just going to pull it up, and just because they have to extend a little further down the page with the mouse, it's not going to hurt their feelings, especially if it's applicable to the job. So definitely make sure that you're cutting enough of it off so it's not too wordy, as well as you're not leaving anything off that could potentially get you this job. Shoot.
Should you convert it to a PDF so that that would show pages, but then nobody can alter it either?
From our experience, PDFs, I'll let Angie get right back to this, but from our experience, PDFs are not preferred for two reasons. Sometimes, believe it or not, hiring managers do not have, they can't unlock a PDF, and they physically cannot look at it. PDF is a program that it's like, it takes a perfect picture of your resume, and it would look just like this on a computer screen. You can't type anything on it. You can't adjust it. And PDFs, while they look great, and I love seeing a PDF resume, Microsoft Word, anything electronic is preferred over it, just for the sole fact that I've had it happen tons of times. People cannot open PDFs. It is. But I would say Microsoft Word whenever possible.
But then my other question is, do you want it in the body of an email or as an attachment?
I always say attachment. We'll touch on this a little bit. When you're applying to a job, cover letter should go in the body of the email, and I say attached is my resume. Yeah. It's sometimes. We'll touch on cover letters a little bit. Cover letters are a little differently, but we always attach resumes. If need be, copy and paste them, but they don't always format correctly. So again, these are scenarios. You know, if someone says copy and paste your email and send it to me, absolutely, but we always attach them.
And to touch a little bit upon the length in the PDF, generally, I mean, we'll get a resume. We're in the marketplace every day. We see, like he said, up to 400 resumes a week sometimes. If we get a resume of yours and we find something on there and we can't, we work on such a fast basis. If we can't get in there and alter it, of course, with your permission, if we can't get on there and alter it, we're not going to send it out to a company if there's an error on there, or if we can't take specific information on there that of course was approved by you. I always like Word documents, especially since I'm representing you. I'm putting you on my letterhead. So in that instance, I prefer Word documents always, because you can't even copy and paste a PDF. They're a PDF because they're locked, so specifically, so you can't alter them. When I am sending out a resume, I put you on my letterhead. I can't do that with a PDF. So I definitely think that that's very important. Depending on what you're applying for, if you were to be applying with Office Team and Account Temps, then we would definitely suggest that you send us a Word document. If you sent us a PDF, we'd ask you for a Word document. As employment gaps, it's very important that you have some type of information on there of why you have a gap in employment history. I have literally heard from a client's mouth, I'd rather somebody be pumping gas than sitting at home and watching Maury. Literally from the horse's mouth verbatim, heard that. And it's true. They want to see that you are, engaging in society, that you're bringing something to the table. Maybe you have a great skill set. Maybe you're doing something that you're way qualified for. But at the end of the day, they like the humble attitude that you'll do what it takes in order to be a normal person in society that is, bringing something to the table and working with the general public. If you could, whatever you can do in order to keep those gaps to a minimum. In a sense of describing an unemployment gap, what I generally say is, were you caring for a child? Are you a new mother? Were you caring for, a sick family member? Were you volunteering? Is there anything that you were doing where you were giving back to society that you can put on there to make it look as though you weren't just buying your time, searching the net, watching TV, collecting, whatever it is? Is there anything that you can put on there with a date? You don't have to get too into the nitty-gritty about your personal aspects of your life, but is there anything that you can say that makes it look like that you are occupying your time, as well as, considering other people in this world? generally we'll see mother raising children for however many years, or took time off raising children, volunteered at a library for however many years, took opportunity to go back to school. That's a good one. I mean, you're getting an education, good for you. That's not nothing. That's definitely highly admirable. It's not frowned upon that you were not employed at the time. It's actually admirable that you went back to spruce up your skill set. So anything that you can do to give yourself the benefit of the doubt of, engaging in society, bringing something to the table in society, definitely make sure it's listed, because those gaps, they cause you to expire, and it's too bad. Oftentimes I'll tell a candidate, when I do present you with an assignment, you haven't been working for the last couple of years, when I do present you with an assignment, take it. Take it to put it on your resume, because when people see gaps over 6 months, I want to say, that's when they start saying, why haven't you been employed? And that's a question, and you need to be ready to answer why you haven't been why you haven't been employed. Yeah, that's basically it.
No, you touched on a good point. I mean, this just happened to me today, actually. I had a client of mine not take our candidate because she hadn't worked since 2010, and there was no explanation, and I couldn't tell them why. And I asked her, and she was like, oh, I just didn't want to work. I didn't have to. Well, it did cost you the job. So, Angie's right. Try to keep them to a minimum. I know sometimes circumstances don't always go like that. There's obviously different situations for everyone. But, at the most, always try to stay working or busy at that fact. Volunteering is a good way to kind of fill in those unemployment gaps. So, some things to leave off your resume that we do see a lot. Reasons for leaving, you don't have to put that on a resume. If it comes up in the interview, yes, you have to be honest. But don't say, I left to take another opportunity. Definitely don't say that. I mean, don't say, I left because I didn't like to work there. I didn't get along with a coworker. You don't have to get into the reason why you left. You can just put a date. I worked from 2010 to 2011 there. That's it. Personal information, they just mean things that you kind of don't need to know about someone. More like, you obviously need your contact information, but you don't need your horoscope in there. You don't need to come in there and tell them, hobbies are different. You can put some hobbies on there if you so choose. But, things that, you wouldn't tell a complete stranger, you wouldn't put on your resume. Because a lot of the times you are handing this to a complete stranger. So, always shy away from saying too much. References available upon request. That's just an extra step a hiring manager might have to go through, and they might not go that extra step. They're not going to call you and ask for your references. Attach your references. It's just 3 or 4 people that you've worked for in the past. Stay away from friend references. Yes, they're great. They're your friends, but they don't always carry a lot of weight. So always try to stick with former managers, former supervisors. If you really have to come down to it, someone you worked with, as a last resort, but always try to keep the managers and the friends to a minimum. All right, here's some things we see quite a bit. I'll go over some of the more important ones, but I'm going to start off with the biggest one. Misrepresentation. You can never, ever lie on your resume. It will get you caught, and you will get backed into a corner. Don't say something you didn't do. You can expand on something you've done, like customer service, and you did offer them friendly service every time they came in. That's great, but don't say as the customer service representative you were also handling the accounts payable for the job. Because I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, great, you can do this and this and this, and then they get you in there, and wait, on your resume it said you could do that. Never, ever lie on your resume. It will get you in trouble. Always be truthful. One thing Angie touched on at the beginning, try not to use a lot of cute words, I would say. Off the top of my head, what's a good cute word people use? Bubbly. That's great. It's great you're bubbly. We'll see that you're bubbly when you get in the job. You don't need to put it on your resume. This one is the second biggest one. Typos and poor grammar. It's funny. I sat down with Debbie Wood. She's the HR manager here, and she will not look at a resume that has one spelling error on it because it's your first impression on someone. If you can't spell, what's a common way? misspelt word. Experience. Experience is always spelt wrong on resumes. If you can't spell experience right and you have spell check, it's not a good sign, all right? You have to sit down and go through your resume top to bottom and really, really make sure it's spelt right. That's a huge one. Vagueness, you don't want to be too vague. Angie did a good job at going over the bullet points. You know, tell us what you did there. Don't say when you were driving trucks, you drove. Oh, great. What were you doing when you were driving? Well, I was driving, obviously, but, you know, tell someone what you're doing. Over-personalizing comes back to the sharing of personal information. You want to stay generic, but be yourself. And I don't mean generic in the sense that you're like everybody else, but don't put on that resume, while I was an administrative assistant at a law firm, I took up quilting and headed a quilting monthly at my house. Why do I need to know that? You know, you're great. That's your hobby, but you don't need to put stuff like that on a resume. Do you have anything to add to this?
I agree. Oftentimes you'll see like a personal profile on a resume as well, which is really over personalizing, and you'll just see a bunch of adjectives. I kind of talked about this before. It will be like go-getter, team leader, friendly, outgoing, reliable. Well, I hope you're reliable. Please be reliable. But that's all those fluff words that you don't necessarily need. So it ends up being overkill and over-personalizing. The I, repetitive I, that's not necessary. As well as the typos and poor grammar is huge. I had a resume and it was just so bad, and the woman was so nice, and she just wanted to work, and she probably would have been a great assistant to this CPA, and it was just so poorly written that I had to go back and edit it, and I took about 30 minutes editing this resume. By the time I'd sent it over, it was already filled. So, I mean, obviously I wasted my time as well as, got her hopes up for nothing. So that's definitely really important. Just make sure that if you're sending out a resume that you're proud of it, for sure. Do you want to go to the next slide? Oh yes, applying via email. This is smart, very smart actually. You can't just send a no subject to, a hiring manager. You need to say, this is what I'm applying for, saw it wherever, paste that cover letter in, and attach that resume. So make sure that you're being very concise, that you are responding to something specific, because if not, I know what I do when I get my inbox. Delete, 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 delete. If I have, a bunch of spam in there, or, things that I've signed my email up for in the past that I probably shouldn't have. And it clusters everything up, and you need to make sure that you have that title there, what you're applying for, so that they can say, oh, this person's interested, and get right into it.
No subject lines here. If you send someone to college an email with no subject lines, you go into our spam.
Mm-hmm. So make sure that you are being very, very thorough with what you're making for the subject line, because they're looking for somebody. I mean, hiring managers don't have the time. That's why they hire through people like me and Aaron. They're swamped. They're looking for somebody. Chances are they're looking for somebody as soon as possible. You want to be prompt. You want to have that follow-up, and definitely be thorough, because that just shows a characteristic that they're most likely looking for on your end. Okay, getting your resume into print. It's funny. Use formatting elements sparingly. Avoid graphics and pictures. Stick to a single font, and choose a simple paper.
That's the biggest one right there. Keep it simple. Everyone tries to do cute stuff with their resume, and it ends up biting them. Just as simple as you can possibly keep it. I just cannot stress this enough. I did bring a couple examples I'll pass around, because I'm a very visual person. But, when you have the chance to write a resume, sit down for 20 or 30 minutes. You don't have to do all these elaborate fonts and, covers and all this crazy stuff. Just make it look good. I cannot stress that enough. Being simple, but also getting to the meat and potatoes of everything.
Font size.
Font size. I want to touch on that real quick. I always say your name should be in the biggest font, or it should be the same font, but a bigger size. I'll pass around I'll pass around one of these right now. All right, this is actually my my college roommate's resume that he let me use today. This is a resume geared towards a finance job, but his name is in size 14 or 16, and with the exception of his honor roll, everything is in the same font. This is just a good example, I'll pass this around the room, of how you can keep it simple but still make your resume stand out. And that is just the biggest thing. You don't have to do these elaborate 3 fonts, word art covers. So that can really help set you apart. All right, Angie will go into the cover letters because she's more of the English major. My biggest thing with a cover letter is I will not say they're dead by any means. I will not. But, if people spend, 5 to 15 seconds on a resume, sometimes this is why your cover letter can help set you apart. But, I'll let Angie touch on it more.
Depending on the position, a cover letter is absolutely very important. We don't primarily deal with too many cover letters generally because we place on temporary to temporary to permanent bases. So when we're looking at the meat and potatoes, we want the meat and potatoes. I mean, a cover letter is very important, especially for a direct hire, depending on, what exactly the position is. If you can really take that position, take your expertise and relate it to each other. So a cover letter should be 3 paragraphs. The first paragraph should be, and they should be only 5 sentences apiece. I mean, maybe you might be able to get away with 7 in the middle paragraph, but the first paragraph is the introduction. This is why I'm interested. This is why I'm interested primarily. The next paragraph, a little bit of my expertise. The next paragraph, why I would be the best fit for this opportunity and why I won't let you down. So those are the 3 aspects that you want to touch on in a cover letter, as well as you want to make sure that you say at the beginning, to whom it may concern, or if you have the hiring manager in which will be overviewing this cover letter, you want to say to Mr. or Mrs. whatever.
If you have the name,
Right. If you don't, then to whom it may concern. The first part of it should have your heading, who you are, as well as where you're coming from, what your phone number is and your email address. And then the second part should be who you're writing to. So just some food for thought on that. Always sincerely, always best regards, always... Yeah, sincerely, warm regards. Those more, I guess you want to say, applicable to job application words. Right. So what you want to accomplish with the cover letter, you want to say, I want to sustain this position because A, B, and C. Those 3 points are very important as well. 2 or 3 points you want to convey. Okay, so I've done this, that's relative to this in the job. I've done this, that's relative to this in the job. And at the bottom, this is why I would be the best fit.
Yep, bring that title back together.
Okay, so building your cover letter, the basics, covering the right bases and the body of the letter. So, the basics are, the top, sir, madame, as well as, your information, their information. Covering the right bases, you definitely want to make sure that you're not going into your history of a baseball player when you are applying for, a human resources position or a customer service position. Take your expertise that you've had in the past and make it applicable to the job because that's what they want to see. They want somebody that's set up for success, not somebody that is, going in blind. And then the body of the letter, that's the meat and potatoes. I definitely think that that would be the relative aspect, making what you're currently doing or what you have been doing in the past and relating it to what the job title is. And make sure you understand that job title because you definitely don't want to go in there blind. I'm applying for this, but I have no idea what I'll be doing. No, definitely make sure that you have a great idea of what the job calls for. Okay, avoid resumania. able to whistle while pretending to drink water at the same time. I was instrumental in helping the company go through bankruptcy. Skills, office management, keyboard skills, internet, database, communication, sense of humor, writer, designer, publisher, humorist, cartoonist, stuff. Okay. Am allergic to copy, toner, and scoundrels. Yeah, I mean, funny, but right, but I'm not here for you to make me laugh. That's what Comedy Central's for when I go home at night, or whatever else, or my roommates that obviously don't have their stuff together. But at the end of the day, I mean, sure, it shows that you have a sense of humor, but that's what the personal interview's for. They want to understand that you're a real person, but they want the facts first. They don't want the soft skills. I mean, soft skills are nice. They want the hard skills. Can you do the job when you're in the seat? Great. Or are you just going to sit there and goof off the entire time? Because seeing this, I'm saying, okay, maybe I'm not going to put you in this prestigious role, because if I do, I'm afraid that you might not take it serious, because you're probably not taking me serious, hence the reason why you wrote this on your resume.
Yeah, that's just a little more on cover letters. I think Angie did a good job. Like, it is very important. We don't see them a lot, but I know cover letters are harder to write than resumes. They're not fun to do, but sometimes they are the difference from getting that job, not getting that job. One more thing I wanted to say. I know most of the stuff we've gone over today is kind of, we do work for finance, accounting, administrative, but no matter what job you're going for, these simple tips can help you stand apart. The biggest thing that helped me is I want to shut this off just so I can. This actually helped me the most when I was writing my resume. My first resume looked so bad, and I remember we had a lady come talk to our class, and she's like, "Does anyone need help writing their resume?" And no one said anything. No one said absolutely anything. And after class, I went up to her and I said, "I need help. I just need some point that will help me set me apart from everyone else." She goes, "Do you have 30 seconds?" And I said, "Sure." And all she did was she went up to the whiteboard. It was just me and her in class. And she just drew a square, which is a piece of paper. She just goes, name, contact, info, very short objective. Yep, thank you.
Don't have typos.
Work history, education. And then she goes, under there, bullet points. That's all she did right there, and that helped me out so much. If that can help you guys out at all, I mean, I cannot stress enough, it doesn't matter which job you're going for. Just keeping this, nothing's going to be the same, but keeping a classic, easy-to-use design helps separate me from getting a job somewhere. And I still thank her to this day. Applicable classes, yeah, if I would put that more on the
Right. It depends. If you have a very broad work history, it doesn't necessarily have to be there. But if you're a recent college grad, I mean, I strongly believe that the reason why I landed this job was because, I strongly believe that the reason why I landed this job was because I had a marketing class where I was chosen by the entire class to to lead the class in creating a startup company. And we created a company where we were renting out textbooks, because we all know how expensive textbooks are if we've ever gone to furthered our education before after college. And we started it up, and I organized it all. So I put that on there because that showed that I had marketing and interpersonal skills, as well as an internship that I did for 6 months for writing for a paper where I was actually going to be invited on permanently. They were going to hire me, but I turned it down because it wasn't going to pay me enough. So I definitely think that that's really important, depending on what you have done in the past. You don't necessarily have to do those things. And also depending on what you're applying for. Education, as well as those hard skills, those Microsoft Office skills, that Adobe skills, those Adobe skills, whatever software that you have. Maybe if you're an accountant, you have Peachtree or QuickBooks or whatever might have you. And then, say certifications. Maybe you're a nurse or an LNA, certified in CPR. There you go, exactly. Depending on what you're applying for, medical billing, coding, yes, whatever type of certificates that you have, that's incredibly important. So if you want a basic structure for you to follow, there it is. And you can shorten it if you don't have these specific things, or if you have something else that you really feel strongly that is very important to a job title, then go ahead and put it on there.
I thought this was a good example. Like that basic structure that was shown to me, Angie put her own flavor on it, and that's what you have to do. You have to make it your own. Just this basic format can really help you set yourself apart from someone who's got a 6-page resume, and use the whole page. I know she touched on that before. That's big though. Use the whole page. Don't be afraid to go right to the margin. They give you 8.5 inches, so use it. I know we just threw a lot at you. Is there any questions?
Yeah, volunteer work, like if you're a coach for a lot of years, does it help or not?
I would put that on there. Absolutely. It was volunteer work, like being a coach. Should you put that on there? 100%. Someone I worked with got a job because he was the assistant baseball coach for 3 years. And throughout the whole interview, they didn't even talk about business, and because they were talking about baseball. And because the hiring manager played third base for some minor league team 25 years ago. So things like that can trigger conversations that you wouldn't even know. I always say any volunteer work, put that on.
I do business with a company, and it's very reputable. And what they do is they organize and they set, I want to say, athletes up for success, in hopefully grooming them to play professional sports. So what they do is they look for somebody who's actually been a coach before, or has, traveled around, has set the itinerary for a team to set the team up for success. Now, to think that I would actually sit down and ask somebody, have you ever done this before when I'm looking to fill this role? I have. And is that generally on their resume? No. So, you'd be surprised at what things are either frowned upon or admired. Where do you put it on your resume? I would probably put that down in the skills and certifications area. Probably down in that area, absolutely.
That's under that miscellaneous category that you can title as achievements or extracurriculars or volunteering. That's sort of the open space.
Does anybody else have any questions? Not at all? Okay.
Now, work history, like, I've only had one job in 31 years. How do you bring that to the table?
You've only had one job in 31 years. How do you bring that to the
31
table?
years.
And may I ask what you're doing?
I'm a production manager. Everywhere I work in EFAB, we build industrial skates for GE.
Oh, you work for General Electric.
Well, we don't work
No, I work
directly,
for a
but we
company.
work for.
Okay.
What you can do is, have you had the same title there for 31 years?
Well, I started in production as an assembly, and then I went up to work.
There you go. You start at the bottom and work your way up. So, you would say, production. From date to date, I did this, and this. And then promotion, and you became a manager of sorts. You have a lot there that you could touch on. It just comes down to, you have to bring that out. I mean, I'm sure you could fill almost 2 pages with the experience you have. You just really have to find those skills in those 31 years there in your different jobs, because I'm sure you weren't doing the same thing the whole time.
Actually, it's really admired by a lot of people that are looking to hire, hiring managers, that you actually invested your time within a company and we're good enough to move up. So it's definitely really important that you put the stages of you excelling on there, as well as, what you're responsible for. Generally, when people are hiring, they're looking for somebody that is able to wear many hats, that's able to excel in their current position, that would be up for promotion. And that's really important, it's, especially since you weren't job skipping. That's highly admirable. So I would definitely make sure that you're being very thorough and, started here, went to here, was then promoted here. You don't have to get that wordy, but just make sure that you show that you climbed up that ladder.
Do you put this at your highest point first or your lowest point first?
Oh, I put highest point first.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
I did bring these. They're very basic and generic. To kind of how an interview goes. They're just things to go over. Landing an interview, they're kind of a snapshot of everything we just went through. They do help. So if you guys just want to, I'll take these. And one more thing that helped me is after the lady came in and taught my class how to write a resume, she followed up with me. She said, let me see what you can do. So I want to leave a stack of my cards, and if you guys want to send me your resumes, I'd be more than happy to take a look, because my roommate's resume I just passed around, I wrote that resume for him, and he got a job yesterday. So it was pretty cool the way everything worked out. Friday, he didn't get a job on Sunday. So, I do like writing resumes, and I will take extra time and sit with people, and help them write a resume, because, overall, I think we're all here for the same reason, to get employed and, be happy. And, I'd love to help out in any way I can. So please.
Thank you guys very much.